Hours after the attempted coup in Benin Republic, President Patrice Talon thanks the army leaders for remaining loyal and staving off the mutiny. The World Health Organization says attack on a hospital has killed over 100 people in Sudan. Plus, South Africa revokes visa-free access for Palestinians after controversial Gaza flight. Welcome to the program. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Let's begin with a recap of major news and happenings here on the continent over the weekend.
A community in Atteridgeville, near Pretoria, was left traumatized after gunmen stormed a hostel and killed at least 12 people in one of the region's deadliest mass shootings in recent years. The early morning shooting occurred at a bar inside a hostel in the Salisville's township, once again drawing attention to the country's unlicensed drinking spots known locally as shebeens. Local residents and relatives of the victims described chaotic scenes in the aftermath of the attack, struggling to recount the trauma while expressing hope that justice will be served. However, police confirmed that 10 victims died at the scene, while 2 others died in hospital. Several additional victims were reported to have succumbed to their injuries. A large task team has been deployed to track down the attackers, who fled immediately after opening fire. In the meantime, the motive for the attack remains unknown. Hundreds of residents have fled Kamanyola, a South Kivu town on the Rwandan border, after bombardments erupted just a day after the DRC and Rwanda signed a peace deal in Washington, D.C. Chief of the town, Hassan Shabani, accused the DRC government of flaring up the attacks, claiming the government in Kinshasa and its coalition are bombing them. According to media reports, more than 520 residents have fled Kamanyola after fighting reignited in eastern DRC on Friday. Meanwhile, the M23 group claimed that 23 people were killed and several others injured following the attacks. A Rwandan political analyst, Alois Mutabinga, has described the U.S. brokered deal between Kigali and Kinshasa, which was signed last Friday, as a major shift that prevents negative conspiracies about the countries of the global north. At the signing ceremony, both governments pledged to respect sovereignty and stop supporting rebel groups, promising joint security, economic cooperation, and help for refugees and displaced people. And kidney patients in Omdurman are facing mounting obstacles in accessing life-saving dialysis and essential medicines as the conflict in Sudan continues to cripple the country's already overstretched healthcare system. On Saturday, at the Al-Nimu Educational Hospital, patients were forced to undergo dialysis amid widespread destruction, with damaged medical equipment scattered throughout the facility. According to the National Center for Kidney Diseases, an estimated 3,800 patients with kidney failure have died since the conflict began in mid-April 2023, largely due to the suspension of dialysis services and the destruction of treatment centers. In an effort to help alleviate the crisis, Sudan's Ministry of Health received 80 dialysis machines from the Qatar Red Crescent on December 1st, 2023.
One of the stories that made headlines this weekend was the attempted coup in Benin Republic, and just hours after a group of soldiers threatened his presidency, the president, Patrice Talon, addressed the people. In a video played on national television, the president first thanked the country's army for repelling the coup. With them, he said, we stood firm, recaptured our positions, and cleared the last pockets of resistance from the mutants. This commitment and mobilization allowed us to thwart these adventurers and save our country. The treachery will not go unpunished. On Sunday, local media said 13 soldiers had been arrested. Some reported that included the coup leader, Lieutenant Colonel Pascal Tigri. Earlier in the day, Tigri led a mutiny, calling themselves the Military Committee for Refoundation. They took over the state television announced that the government had been dissolved. Nearly an hour later, the Minister of Interior said the takeover attempt had been foiled. And before the soldiers' attempt was foiled, the Economic Community of West African States released a statement condemning the coup and ordering an immediate return to constitutional governance in Benin Republic. ECOWAS later ordered the immediate deployment of its standby force following what is said was wide consultations with its heads of state and government and the mediation of Security Council. Statement from the community says the decision taken at the highest level was based on Article 25E of the 1999 ECOWAS Protocol relating to the mechanism for conflict prevention, management, resolution, peacekeeping, and security. It says the regional force shall be made up of troops from the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Republic of Sierra Leone, the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, and the Republic of Ghana. Their job will be to preserve constitutional order and the integrity of the Republic of Benin. All of this happened just 24 hours since the coup on Sunday.
Le comité militaire pour la refondation CMR, réuni ce jour, dimanche 7 décembre 2025, à Cotonou.
The coup in Benin Republic was quite unexpected for a country believed to have had one of the most stable democracies in Africa. Early Sunday morning, correspondents near the presidential villa reported hearing gunshots. Soon, a group of soldiers, which called itself the Military Committee for Refoundation, interrupted regular programming on national television and announced the removal of President Talon and all state institutions.
Au petit matin de ce dimanche 7 décembre 2025,
within the hour, however, the Interior Minister Alassane Seydou said in a video statement that Benin's armed forces had thwarted the attempted coup. He urged the population to go about their business as usual. President Talon is reportedly taking refuge at the French embassy in Cotonou. The embassy had earlier reported gunfire at Camp Gezo near the presidential palace. The Russian embassy recommended citizens remain at home and observe basic precautions until the situation becomes clearer, while the U.S. embassy said it was monitoring the earlier reported gunfire and unconfirmed reports of the coup. Although the government says things have returned to normal and the situation in Benin remains uncertain, the attempted coup, however, becomes the 12th in Africa in 5 years. International Affairs analyst Paul Ejime has faulted ECOWAS' response to the use of force in Benin Republic, as saying such announcement loses efficacy with the element of surprise. Ejime was speaking earlier with me on Diplomatic Channel. He wondered why the community would consider deploying force now when it has not done so for other countries that have experienced military takeovers of political power.
In the case of this one that ECOWAS is saying, it would have happened just as these people are announcing it. That is when it will be effective. The same thing for Guinea-Bissau. If, by the way, ECOWAS has what they call peace stabilization support mission of about 500 troops in Guinea-Bissau. So one is wondering why they didn't pick up any intelligence about what Mbalo was trying to do. Because if they did, that is the time that they would have been able to counter it, and then it will have a meaning. Okay? But now, just like they didn't succeed with the threat against Niger, I don't know whether going with the military force will do anything. Even though I hear from diplomatic sources that Nigeria had tried to assist with some air power, and that was why they were they have been able to rein in these mutineers or whatever. But some of them have been caught and others are on the run. But the position of the president Talon is still undetermined. So the question of using force, it is tricky, and it can be dangerous, and so you need to plan it with. There would not be, the margin of failure will not, be very little. But if you left it for time is of the essence, that's what I'm trying to say. That if you didn't do it immediately, you will now need it could become dangerous and bloody.
You can watch more of Paul Ejime's interview on Diplomatic Channel as today, beg your pardon, at 8:30 p.m. on Sky 515 and DSTV Channel 420 right here on Channels Television. Let's dig some more into this now. Joining me is contributor to African Liberty, a platform for advancing individual freedom, peace and prosperity in Africa by promoting civil discussion and debate about social, legal, economic and world issues affecting Africans. Abdullah joins me from Abuja here in Nigeria. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a while that we seen a scenario like this, a coup, and then it was followed by the army. Then the government says everything is back to normal, but then the president's whereabouts remain unknown. Do you think the president, Patrice Talon, still has control over Benin Republic?
I would say yes. From reports that we've gotten from Benin, from Cotonou, we believe the president is in control of the country. And we also believe that the coup plotters some of the coup plotters are currently on the run, and some of them have been arrested. And thanks to the intervention of the ECOWAS military, we are sure that, or we are confident that the country will go back to normal and the democracy or the normal administration will be restored. Yeah, I can say from the reports that we've gotten so far, the president is in control and the country is back to normal.
Do you perhaps know where President Talon is? I mean, as at yesterday, he was reported to have been at the French embassy in Cotonou.
Well, we may not have definite location of where the president is, but we've seen, first we saw the interior minister appear on TV saying the president is safe and the country is, they are curtailing the coup. And later we saw the president appearing personally on TV, and also issuing out statements. That is an evidence to say that the president is safe and the administration is in control of the country.
Let's talk about this standby force that ECOWAS has deployed, and it happened just as I imagined it. Nigeria, of course, being named on the list, providing soldiers to this force. We already have a huge insecurity problem here in the country. Not enough soldiers to go around. One of the reasons they say insecurity has thrived for so long, but we're still obligated to provide troops to ECOWAS because of our commitment. How should the average Nigerian make sense of this deployment happen at a time when we're also facing our own insecurity challenges?
Okay, we need to understand that this is just an emergency, and it's not. We hope it's not going to last long. Nigerian military is going to back to the country anytime soon. We believe so, and at the same time, we think it is just necessary for the ECOWAS to interfere, because if we have Benin, just neighboring Nigeria, and we have a military intervention there, we have political instability, we do not know what can happen at any point in time. We don't know when that instability will spill over into the country. We don't know how it will affect our economy. And as a matter of fact, Nigeria trades so much with Benin, and if there is going to be a military ruler in Benin, that will mean cutting off economic ties, leaving Benin out of ECOWAS, which is going to throw a strong stone at our economic activities in the country. So since this is just an emergency and we believe it's just going to last for a short period of time, we could accept the fact that Nigeria should send the forces. And as a matter of fact, we say these are ECOWAS standby force. So they couldn't have been our regular military men. So since they are just ECOWAS standby force, we could do with it for Nigerian military men to go to Benin. And as a matter of fact, it's not only Nigeria, like you mentioned, we have other military men from other ECOWAS countries that are part of the military team that went to Benin. So we should be able to do with it, and we hope the instability will be solved, the country will go back to normalcy, and the military men will go back to their countries.
Right. And you know, we talked about Benin Republic being a peaceful democracy. I mean, they have been peaceful for a while. Talon has been president for almost 10 years, and he's supposed to be stepping down next year. So when we look at the map of West Africa, the number of countries with civilian governments is shrinking. How can we prevent this and stave off this wave of coups happening on the continent and in the region?
That's a very interesting question, because if you want to prevent future coup in West African countries, we need to go back to the roots. What is the cause of this coup in the first place? So if you look at the recent coup we had in Benin, we had in Guinea-Bissau, and the other one we've seen in the past years in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, there is a trend of insecurity and also bad governance or political, a president consolidating power. So if you look at these countries, there is one or more elements of this thing I just listed. There are one or more elements there, and that is what we should be addressing. So we need to address the insecurity in the Sahel. We need to address the terrorists disturbing Nigeria, Niger, Burkina Faso, and recently Benin. And we also need to address the issue of president consolidating power. I mean, clamping down on dissents, on oppositions, as we've seen in Guinea-Bissau and also in Benin. Because if you look at the last election that was held in Benin, there was a protest post-election activities, and there were clamped down on protesters. And even the election that was supposed to be held in April next year, the top positions was denied candidacy. So that is very disturbing, and that is a trend that you can find in most of the countries that have had attempted coup in the past years. So if we want to stop the spread of military intervention in politics in West Africa, we need to address the root cause. And at the same time, we also need to have ECOWAS being proactive, as they did in Benin. We need to have them proactive to, for instance, if the military men know that there's going to be a repercussion and there's possibility of coup not being successful, there will be a deterrent for them to even execute a coup in the first place.
Abdullah Tijani, contributor to African Liberty, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me.
We're off on a short break. Coming up after. Ability in disability. We're looking at one Kung Fu master, Martin Mangwanjo, shaping Cameroon's young population one straight punch at a time. Stay with us. Welcome back to Network Africa. Over 100 people have been killed following an attack on a kindergarten and hospital in Sudan recently, a move described by the Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, as senseless. The UN says 63 children were among the dead in the attack carried out by drones on the facilities. The Rapid Support Forces, one of the sides in the country's raging civil war, was accused by both its enemy, the army, and a medical organization, the Sudan Doctors Network, of mounting the attack. In another development, the RSF claimed control of the country's largest oil field, Heglig. Sudan has been ravaged by war since April 2023, when a power struggle broke out between the RSF and the army, who were formerly allies. The UN says the humanitarian situation in northern Mozambique continues to deteriorate sharply as prolonged attacks by non-state armed groups in Nampula trigger one of the largest displacement surges in the year. According to the UN and the UN Aid Coordination Office, OCHA, 107,000 people have fled their homes in recent weeks, pushing total displacement in just the past 4 months to 330,000. The veteran humanitarian explained that violence has often uprooted families multiple times as they endure weeks of attacks, an unusual pattern compared to previous hit-and-run tactics. South Africa has withdrawn its 90-day visa exemption for Palestinian passport holders on account of the visas being used to relocate Palestinians from Gaza. The South African Department of Home Affairs announced on Saturday it had allegedly investigated the visas and discovered deliberate and ongoing abuse of the 90-day visa exemption for Palestinian ordinary passport holders by Israeli actors linked to voluntary emigration efforts for residents of the Gaza Strip. The department also referenced a recent incident in November where 153 Gazans arrived on a charter flight in South Africa, allegedly without prior coordination. South Africa's Border Management Authority initially refused their entry because they were unable to indicate the duration of their stay or the address of their accommodation. Out of the 153, only 23 were transferred to their final destinations, while the remaining 130 were processed for entry into South Africa on a 90-day visa. Staying with the Border Management Authority, it has outlined its festive season operations. Briefing the media in Pretoria, BMA Commissioner Dr. Michael Masiapato highlighted that in the last 2 festive seasons, foreign travelers dominated cross-border movements in South Africa. He says the second quarter of 2025, BMA has arrested more than 8,000 people attempting to enter the country illegally.
On visa requirements, the immigration team remains vigilant in enforcing compliance with the terms and condition of various visas and permits at the port of entry as issued by the principal organ of state. At the port of entry, it is mandatory for the inward foreign travelers to produce a residential address of their intended place of stay within South Africa. All travelers who are granted a particular visa are only permitted to engage in activities permitted by such visa. For instance, a student visa, the person who has been issued with a student visa should actually participate in educational related matters, but not on employment related issues. Regarding the movement of children, parents traveling with a child must produce an unabridged birth certificate for the child showing both parents' details. If only one parent is traveling, an affidavit from the other parent authorizing the travel, or the court order granting full parental rights, or a death certificate of the other parent will be required. Otherwise, failure to produce these required documents will result in that child not being permitted to exit the country.
Despite his disability, Kung Fu master Martin Mwanjo is shaping the future of Cameroonian martial arts in Yaoundé, where he inspires a new generation of young athletes with resilience and discipline. Here he is in this video guiding his students through training at his own temple of the Golden Knights Martial Arts Studio in Mboman neighborhood. He says his journey began in 2011 after watching countless Chinese films. I thought to myself, he said, why not be like those actors who perform such incredible movements? Well, that curiosity, he said, led him to a local club where he met his master. Under his guidance, he learned the fundamentals of martial arts through dedication and practice. He eventually achieved the rank of master. The Kung Fu master says he's been dealing with his disability since childhood, the result of a poorly administered vaccine. Despite these challenges, he's never let his condition stand in the way of his passions. Interesting. And as we end the program, did you know that over 25% of the world's languages are spoken only in Africa? And there are thought to be around 2,000 languages in use on the continent. All are considered official languages of the African Union. Nigeria alone has over 500 living languages. And now you know. That's Network Africa. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.